Hi everyone, and welcome to the channel. Zach D Productions here, and I'm here for another one of these worst songs from each album video. Now, as you can see, this is not my usual setup. I'm actually standing in front of my green screen right now. I thought that this would be a nice change of things, so I figured, hey, why not? So for this video, I'll be going over the discography of progressive metal legends, Dream Theater, and I'll be choosing the worst song from each album based on my opinion. Now, when it comes to Dream Theater's discography, you really can't go wrong with most of their work. I pretty much dig most of their material. There's only really a few songs of theirs that I would just say are okay, or maybe even bad, if you want to really consider any of their songs bad. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. And we, of course, start off with their debut album, When Dream and Day Unite, which is the only album that doesn't feature James LaBrie on vocals. They had a different singer at this time. Yeah, this is not one of their better albums, but it's still good. I mean, there's only really a couple songs that I return to from this album, but I wouldn't consider any of the songs bad by any means. But yeah, there's really a few contenders that you really could say could be the worst on the album. I might go with Status Seeker, maybe, I don't know. I don't really think to return to that song very much, but it's not bad. But yeah, why not? I'll go with that song. And then we move on to Images and Words, which is probably my favorite Dream Theater album, maybe even my favorite prog metal album ever as well. Of course, the first Dream Theater album with James LaBrie. I think all the songs on this album are great. So yeah, it's rather difficult to choose a least favorite or worst song, because I think all the songs on this album are great, but I'd probably go with Wait for Sleep as my least favorite. It's a short piano ballad. Just, to me, it's not as interesting as the other songs on the album, but still very good, don't get me wrong. And then we move on to Awake, which was actually my first Dream Theater album. Probably my second favorite album from them as well. Yeah, really great album. You also can't go wrong with anything from this album either. But if I had to choose a least favorite, it'd probably either be Voices or Scarred, maybe. I don't know, one of these songs. They're good songs, don't get me wrong, but you gotta have a least favorite. So yeah, it'd probably be one of those songs. And then we move on to Falling into Infinity. Yeah, pretty good album. I'd probably go with either Just Let Me Breathe or Anna Lee as my least favorite, though. I just don't think to return to these songs very much, but they're okay tracks, I think. So, yeah. Probably one of those songs. And then we move on to Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory. Yeah, probably another favorite of mine of their discography. Of course, a concept album, and probably their best concept album as well. For my least favorite, though, I'd probably go with Finally Free. I'm not sure how popular this choice would be, but to me, it's just not as good as the other songs. It's a good song, but to me, just not as good as the other tracks on the album. And then we move on to 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence. Another tough one, I think, because, again, I think all the songs on this album are really good as well. Disappear, however, is probably the worst song from this album, but still not bad by any means. It's just the song that I return to the least from this album, but still not bad. Next, we have Train of Thought, which is probably Dream Theater's heaviest album. Very solid album for sure. Dream of Consequences is probably my least favorite on here, though. Like with the last one that I mentioned, it's just the song that I return to the least, but still, pretty good song. And then we move on to Octavarium, which is an album that has grown on me over time. I used to say that it was overrated. Well, I still kind of think that, but I just appreciate the album more as I gave it more listens. But my least favorite on here would have to be Never Enough. Again, like with the last ones, just the song that I return to the least. Is it a good song? Yes. But to me, it's just not as good as the other songs on the album. And then we move on to Systematic Chaos. one of their worst albums, I think. Prophets of War is definitely my choice for this album, and I know I'm not alone on that because I know a lot of people say that that's the worst song from this album. In fact, it's maybe one of their worst songs just in general. Yeah, easy pick for this one. Black Clouds and Silver Linings is up next. Again, another album where I think all the songs are good. The Shattered Fortress, however, is probably my least favorite on here. Yeah, not much to say, but yeah, it's probably my least favorite. Still a good song, though. A Dramatic Turn of Events is up next. Another tough one, because I think all the songs on this album are really good as well. I think a lot of people would go with the closing track, Beneath the Surface, but I actually like that song. It's a nice ballad song. I'd actually go with Outcry as my least favorite on here. Again, it's a good song, but to me, just not as good as the other songs on the album, in my opinion, of course. And then we move on to their self-titled album. Yeah, this one was kind of easy, because this album does have a few forgettable tracks, and those songs are Behind the Veil and Surrender to Reason. So one of these songs would probably be my choice for this album. They're decent songs, but to me, just not as interesting as the other songs from this album. But still, not bad. Next we have probably their worst album, The Astonishing. It's another concept album of theirs. I mean, there's a few decent moments on the album. There's really quite a few contenders that could be the worst song from this album as well. Maybe When Your Time Has Come. A Tempting Offer, maybe. I don't know. It's hard to choose from this album because there is a lot of forgettable moments from this album. So yeah. And then we move on to Distance Over Time, which is a good comeback album for them, I think, especially after The Astonishing. Room 137 or Out of Reach would probably be my choice for this album. And maybe Room 137, just the least memorable one for me, and probably the song that I return to the least as well from this album. Still not a bad song though, but it's gotta be one of the weaker tracks from the album. And then we finally move on to their last album, A View from the Top of the World, which, in my opinion, I think is the best album that they've done in years. I like everything from this album as well. In my opinion, I think all the songs are great. But The Alien would probably be my choice for this album being the worst on the album. That might be a surprising pick since that is one of the singles. It is a good song, it definitely is. But to me, it's just not as good as the other songs on the album. So yeah, The Alien is my pick for this album. Well, there you have it. That's my video for the worst song from each Dream Theater album. Feel free to let me know what you think. What songs would you pick from each album from this band? Feel free to let me know. So thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Take care.